might be the day that changes their life for eternity. I think someone's worth that. Amen? I think their life is worth that. It's worth that. This is my hashtag life. Social media has consumed our world. Now, let me just make this, I'm going to make this blanket statement now, and I'll probably say it every week. This is not an anti-social media series. I'm not going to stand up here and say, don't use it. It's awful, because I love social media. I communicate with it every day personally. We communicate through our church in so many different ways, whether it be our Facebook page, Instagram, YouTube, our app, our website. We're on it. We're using it. We're not going to stop. It is a great, awesome tool to connect with people and to share the gospel. If you're not connected with our church in one of those areas, get connected. You miss a message, you can catch it right there. I mean, get connected on our app. There are so many amazing things that occur, not only just the messages. Greg does a fantastic job every day, devotions and scriptures and things that will just speak into your life, and things that, you'll need, messages that we need to share with you. Whatever it may be, it's a great way to connect. Great way to connect. Social media in general is an awesome thing, and it has evolved, and honestly, it will always be here. Social media will never go away. Well, until Jesus comes back, and there'll be no need for it. But it's here. So many different forms and so many advantages of social media and technology. Here's some interesting data for you. Twitter. There are 100 million daily users on Twitter. 100 million. These are 2018 numbers. Statistics. 500 million tweets a day. Snapchat, which is basically, I just don't get it. I don't get Snapchat. I just don't. My kids love it. The younger millennials love it. 188 million daily users with 3 billion. 1 billion are yours, aren't they, Becky? She's like, oh, no. 3 billion snaps a day. Here's what I don't get. You post the picture, the snap, whatever, and in just a little while, it's gone. You can't even go back and see something that was awesome. It's gone. It's like you've wasted the 10 seconds of your life it took to snap the picture and send it. But yet our teenagers are communicating on it every single day. Instagram, 500 million daily users, 50 billion photos a day worldwide on Instagram. And then the ever popular Facebook. Now, I'd heard for a long time, and actually, that, Facebook was just kind of getting old, and it was just kind of going by the wayside, and all these new things, were the up and coming, and what people are using. 1.57 billion daily users on Facebook. Facebook users are 53% female and 47% male. The average person has 328 friends. Now, some of you are like, well, I blasted by that on day 2. It accounts for 42% of monthly social media visits. 5 billion comments are left monthly. The like button in the history of Facebook has been pushed 1.13 trillion times. Is that not astounding? The average person, I want you to listen to this. Now again, 1.57 billion daily users. That's 1.57 billion people worldwide. The average time a person spends on Facebook is 35 minutes a day. That's average. That means there's a whole lot more than that, and there's some less than that. Some people probably on that thing 24 hours a day, if they could be. Some people could care less and don't want to have anything to do with it. Amen. Every 60 seconds, every minute, 317,000 status updates, 400 new users, 147,000 photos uploaded, and 54,000 shared links. Here's a pretty cool one. 85% of people watch videos on Facebook with the sound off. I'm one of those. Right? You don't turn the sound on for that. You just don't do that. You don't have to anymore because they got the caption down below. You can just read everything that happens. Every 20 minutes, 1 million links are shared, 20 million friend requests are sent, and 3 million messages are sent. It's amazing. I want to go back to the one that I read just a second ago. Average time a person spends on Facebook is 35 minutes a day. That tells me that social media in general, all of these numbers are staggering, but social media in general is a priority in today's life. It has become, actually, it's just a common thing. If you're not living on social media, then you're really not living today, because that's how people communicate. It's how people talk. It's how people share life, correct? And again, I'm on it. I'm right there in the middle of it every single day. I use it again at church. I use it in my business, in my job. I use it. It's an important way to communicate. However, today, and really for this entire series, but specifically today, I'm about to tell you that if you do it too much and you're consumed with it too much, it can actually hurt your relationships. It can rob you of some very important and special moments in your life. It can. Now again, this is not the anti-social media, and Pastor Ron is not preaching to get off Facebook and get off social media and just shut that off. That's not what I'm doing. But I am going to challenge us. Today I want to talk about specifically relationships. Next week I'm going to talk about just being real. Today's hashtag is Be My Friend. Just hashtag Be My Friend. I would challenge you this week to be intentional while you're on social media. Be intentional with your posts. Think about relationships and friendships. The messages that you send to people, texts that you send to people, IMs that you send, tweets, snaps, whatever it may be. And anytime you get the opportunity, just hashtag it with Be My Friend. Just be my friend. Friendships matter, people. It's a big deal. Real, relevant friendships. Again, next week is hashtag Just Be Real. We're going to talk about how social media can cause us to not be so real. I'll just leave it at that. So today I want to talk to you about relationships. And I'm going to start in John chapter 13. And to give you the context of these verses, when he was speaking this, Jesus had just washed the disciples' feet. Now, some of you are like, man, that's weird. Some of you may never have heard about foot washings. I grew up, I can remember in our church, in First General, we would have foot washings pretty routinely, not all the time. And I remember in the church, there was a room on this side and a room on this side. And the men would go into this room and the women would go over here to this room and you know, foot washing. Talk about encounter. That was one of the most special moments of my life when my son washed my feet. Never forget it. But now think about this in this context. When Jesus is speaking this, he is washing the disciples' feet. Now, you think some people got stinky feet today? That's funny, but I'm being serious. You think about the time and the culture of when this happened. Most of them had no shoes, and if they did, they were just, and they didn't have showers and all these things that get you. I can't even imagine. You just think about the nastiest foot ever and multiply it by 100. And here is Jesus, the Son of God, the Messiah, knelt down, grabbing a hold of these feet and washing them and cleaning them. To me, it's one of the most humbling things And those of you that have been a part of foot washings and you have done that, you know that. It is a humbling experience, not only for the one getting their foot washed, but maybe even more so for the one doing the washing. So Jesus is in this moment, and before he speaks what he speaks, and this even makes it more relevant because the couple verses I'm about to share with you, if you think about this in context, he is showing it before he says it. And this is what he says in John chapter 13, verse 34 and 35. He says, "A new command I give you." He says, "Love one another." He says, "A new command I give you." He says, "Love one another." He said, "As I have loved you, so you must," what? Love one another. Love one another. Verse 35 says, "By this Jesus said, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you" what? What I love about this is not just what he said, but to me, the most important part about these scriptures, and really everything in context with what we're talking about today, it's what he didn't say. Because he said, they'll know that you're my disciples. They'll know you're Christians by your love. He didn't say, they'll know you are Christians or they'll know you're disciples by going to church. Now, going to church is important, and you should be in church every single Sunday, or at least as many Sundays as you possibly can. But that's not how as important as church is, that's not what Jesus said. He did not say that people will know that you are Christians or they'll know you're my disciples by how much you go to church. He didn't say that they'll know that you're my disciples by your theology. He didn't say that. He didn't say by how much you knew, how much you understood, how many scriptures that you memorized, and every single one of those things are vitally important for our personal relationship and walk with God. Not at all diminishing those, but he said they'll know you're a Christian, they'll know you're a disciple by how you love people. By how you love people. He didn't say they'll know you are my disciples if you have a bumper sticker on the back of your car. Quite honestly, maybe some of you probably shouldn't because of the way you drive. That would be me. I just have to confess. You know, I just tell this story. You know, you guys know how it just irritates me when people get in the left lane and they drive slow. Confession. So I'm going to work, I think it was Friday morning, and I'm over in the left-hand lane, and to be honest with you, I'm thinking, a lot of different things going on, and I'm thinking, I'm praying, I'm thinking about this message, all this stuff, and I'm just kind of zoned out in the left lane. And I happen to look down, and normally I set my cruise, I'm better at setting my cruise than I used to be, but normally it's set a little bit quicker. I looked down and I was running 66 miles an hour. And I always look in my rearview mirror. I do, because I want to see the cars that are coming. If I'm in the wrong lane, I want to get over because it just drives me nuts. Well, as I look down and I look back in my rearview mirror, having that moment, I didn't see anybody. But then I turned and glanced, and to my right in the other lane was this gentleman in this pretty nice car. And he was telling me that I was the number one guy. And he sped right past me. And I would love to tell you that I prayed for that man and I punched it. I got on that guy's behind. I did. I'm confessing. I don't know what I was going to do. And then I slowed down, came to my senses. So that's me. They're going to know we're disciples by how we love each other. With the sacrificial love of Jesus inside of our hearts, showing that, living that. So let's ask a question. How is technology changing our relationships? How is technology changing our relationships? We know that it's helping in a lot of different ways. We get to connect with family members and friends that we don't get to see every day, right? That's a big deal. It's a big deal. My grandmother that lives in Arkansas, she basically knows how to turn her tablet on, push on the Facebook icon, and the only thing there is her family. So that's all she sees. She can like when my Mimi gets on Facebook, because every picture she only does it about once a month, but then your notification box is just blown up by my Mimi liking every single picture and post. So, but it's a great way to stay connected, and so that is a big deal. There's also unintended negative consequences. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, a lot of different ways. But I want to talk about really three big issues just really quick that really impact what we're talking about today. The first thing is the term friend. The term friend. That term is evolving. It's ever evolving. I can remember, and many of you can too, years and years ago, if you talked about a friend, it was somebody that you shared life with. It's somebody that you hung out with. It's somebody that you went to their house. They came to your house. And I mean, it was that you were with each other all the time. You might, cruise the square on a Friday and Saturday night, or, you spent face-to-face time. Your friends are the ones that you spent time with. But today, a friend could mean somebody that has liked your social media page, that follows you, that you never say 5 words to face-to-face, you never even see face-to-face. Some of them you don't even know. There are a lot of people, and maybe some of them are you, that accept people's friends requests that you don't even know, so you can say you have this many friends. People do that. Now, I joke about it, but there's reality to that. And the reality is so they can say that they have friends. The whole term friend has evolved so much. Again, the average Facebook user has 328 friends, but the average American says they only have 2 very close friends. And you'd be surprised, there's a large number that say they have none. They have 0 close friends. They have 0 people that they interact with personally on a day-to-day or even a week-long basis. This is real, people. The tension is real. People say, I've got 328 friends, when in reality, they say they don't really have any. So we could argue all day that we have a lot of online interactivity, but yet very limited personal intimacy. So the term friend is evolving. And how will people know that we're disciples? How will people know that we're disciples? Okay. The second thing, and this is really interesting to me, is that we're becoming addicted to immediate affirmation. Today's culture and society is becoming addicted to immediate affirmation. In other words, if I'm feeling lonely and I want a little affirmation, I can take a selfie real quick. Bear with me. Oh, got to turn it around. Here we go. Hey. Smile. Great. So if I'm feeling lonely, of course I put you all in the picture, so maybe you're feeling lonely too. I can immediately go to my Instagram and I can post this picture. Got to put the right filter on it, though. Make it look good. I'm also going to share it to my Facebook, so we can do a lot of things there. Maybe. Here we go. Turn on. It's supposed to be simple. Oh, forget it. I'll just share it later. But now it's on my Instagram. Now, I can go back to that after service or later on in the day, specifically to see how many people have liked my picture. A lot of people, and if this is you, I'm not saying this is you. If you're a selfie person, you post 4,752 selfies a day. I'm not saying that this is you or you have a problem. But for some people, when they look at that picture that they posted, it means something when someone likes it. Because in a weird, crazy sort of way, they like me. That person that has no personal interaction with people, when they see that like, I'm surprised nobody's went and found that yet. Maybe nobody likes me. But if I come back a minute later, I would have some likes. I may even have a comment. I could get some immediate feedback. We're becoming addicted to this immediate feedback. In fact, scientists will tell you that it's because of this release of this chemical in our brain called dopamine. Dopamine makes us feel good. When something makes us feel good, it releases that into our body. And it's just like, oh, what did they say? Did they like it? Who liked it? How many people liked it? Why didn't he like it? Why didn't she like it? Well, I'm not liking anything that they post anymore. How do people know that we're disciples of Christ? How do people know? There we go. We're going to get it pretty quick. And what this is doing, it's like meeting a short-term need, but we're deferring a longer-term and deeper need. It's like it's meeting this need for that immediate affirmation, that immediate acceptance, that immediate like. But honestly, can I just be real? We get sucked into that lifestyle, and all of us desire a long-term, personal, face-to-face relationship. How do I know that? Because God created us, and we were created in the image of God, and God desires that relationship with you and me. It's a big deal. We're living for likes, but we're longing for love. Write that down. We're living for likes, but we're longing for love. So how's technology changing relationships? The term friends is evolving. We're becoming addicted to immediate affirmation. And number 3, we have the power to do friendship on our terms. We have the power to do friendships on our own terms. In other words, if Adam sends me a text right now, it's up to me whether or not I respond to it, look at it. It's up to me whether I just kind of push it off and not deal with it. If Wade sends me a picture, it's up to me whether or not I like that picture, whether I just discard that picture. I have the power to determine if it's like-worthy or not. There's power in that like button. Is it worth the double tap? Is it worth the heart? See, just liking something's one thing, but is it worth the heart? I'm in complete and total control. So much has changed. Once a person said this, and I don't know who it was, I don't have a clue, I just found this on social media. The more I use social media, the more I crave personal interaction. The more I use social media, the more I crave personal interaction. Why? Because we were created that way. Another person said this, I feel more connected than ever before, and yet I feel more alone. I feel more connected to other people more than ever before, but yet I feel so alone. It's almost like we're out of control. All I know is click, click, scroll, scroll, click, 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 scroll, scroll, scroll. And all we want is more. Today, just really quickly, I want to share some scriptures with you about the importance of connection and relationship. And really, this is more than a social media message, because I know a lot of you probably don't use social media very much at all. Maybe some of you none at all. This is a message about relationships. This is a message about priorities. This is a message about realizing who's important, what's important in our life as it pertains to relationships. So I want to talk to you about this today. In Hebrews chapter 10, verses 24 and 25, the writer says this, let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Wouldn't it be amazing, just really quickly, wouldn't it be amazing to get together with other followers of Jesus and say, hey, how can we be so aggressive in the way that we show love that people like? Because today, let me go back to read that. Let us think of ways to motivate one another to acts of love and good works. Show me how much we're seeing that today. You go home and open your social media page right now, for all I care, and you start thumbing through it, and you start picking the positive things versus the negative things. Especially right now in the middle of the election time. Really? I'm not going to get on a political soapbox, but holy cow. Got to love people. Oh, I can't stand them. It's reality. He goes on to say this, because he said, and he goes on to say, and let us not neglect our meeting together. Let us not neglect face-to-face interaction. Let us not neglect real face-to-face relationships, as some people do. But encourage one another as the days draw near. Let us not neglect our meeting together. Some of us need to rediscover the power of practicing presence and being together with people. It matters. It matters. In fact, Jesus said in Matthew 18:20, he says, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am in the midst. 2 or 3 people gathered together, face to face, personally, together, in the same room, right here, just like us. Jesus is right here. Right here, in the middle of this big, huge group of relationships right here. He's right in the middle of it. Why? Because he wants to be. He understands the importance of relationships. Now, does this mean we can't experience his presence alone? Absolutely not. There are times when you need to get away and you need to be alone and you need to experience that one-on-one time with God. We're to love God with everything that we have. But it doesn't stop there, because we know that Jesus said that, he said, I'm giving you a new command, which is the second greatest commandment, to love others, right? To love others. But to do that, we've got to be relational. There's just something special, something powerful when we come together with other believers and see God in prayer. When you join hands with each other and your faith connects and you petition, that very presence of God to fall in this place, it matters. It matters when we come together and we worship together. It does. It matters, doesn't it? Doesn't it matter? Isn't there just something about being in a room with other people that are worshiping God freely? Isn't there just something that is drawing about that? Man, there's power in presence. Power. Think about it this way. God did not tweet or IM his love from heaven. Think about it. I get that we didn't have none of that stuff back then, but he didn't just shout down and say, hey, people, I love you. What did he do? He sent his son to this earth to have a physical relationship with people. Because God could have done it any way that he wanted. You read in the Old Testament where God spoke, people actually audibly heard the voice of God. God could have spoken that moment and say, hey kids, you're messing up. I love you. He could have said anything that he wanted to say, but yet he sent his son to have a physical, personal, face-to-face, contact-to-contact relationship with people. It matters that much to him. And therefore, it should matter to us. In fact, Jesus' name is Emmanuel, which means God with us. God became one of us in the person of Jesus, and he lived with us, and he walked with us. He loved those that others rejected. He poured his heart into the religious communities that said, you know what? We don't agree with this. We don't like this. We don't like you. We just want to keep you. It didn't matter. He still came for them. He ate with, dined with, fellowshiped with tax collectors and sinners and prostitutes. He chose to love people that were deemed unlovable by many. So what I want to do today is get very practical, just really quickly, just very practical. 2 things, simply and quickly, that I promise you will help. And I hope that we recognize and realize, again, don't get rid of social media, use it. Just recognize when it could be potentially becoming a problem. A couple things. First thing is this. I want to encourage you to be present with one another. Be present in people's lives. More than just from this, be present. Face to face, right there, interacting. Be present with one another. Paul said this in Romans 12:9. He said, don't just pretend to love others. Don't just pretend to love others. Don't just make it a game. Don't just, by the way, can I just say this? I'll probably say this again in a minute, but can I just say this? If someone asks you to pray and you get something on social media and somebody posts something, I think sometimes we get caught up in the realm of just saying, I'll be praying for you, and then we never pray. That becomes the prayer. If you're going to say you're going to pray for somebody, you pray for them. A habit that I've gotten into, and this is just something, it's a habit that I do the very best I can to stick to it. If somebody posts something like that or they need something, I will pray for them before I ever post that I pray. I'll stop what I'm doing in that moment and I will pray right there. So you can, if I've said I'm praying, that means I prayed. Before you ever type it. Now listen, you need to type it. Let them know that you're praying, that you just pray. Make it real. Don't pretend to love others. But he goes on to say, love each other with genuine affection and take delight in honoring each other. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Personal interaction. Be present. Love people. Really love them. Love them. And how about this? You know something else that these little devices do that are really, really cool? You know, they text and they tweet and they send emails and they do all of these different things. And my wife's not even here to answer her phone. She's really not, because I'm calling her. You can still make a phone call with these things. You can physically, verbally talk to somebody. You can. It's amazing. Here's something else. Let's get really, really crazy out there. Yeah, texting, tweeting, all that stuff's amazing. Picking up the phone works great. But if you really want to get crazy, go see them. Right? Just go see them. Get in your car, drive across town, go to their house, bang on the door. Hey, hey, hey. I'm not just here to pray for you. I'm here to pray with you. See, I grew up in a non-hashtag world. We didn't have that. Yeah, it was a number sign. That's what we were talking about before service. It was a number sign, and we learned it in Mrs. Bristol's typing class on the typewriter. Closest thing we had to social media, as Lee was talking earlier, was the party line. You guys remember that? Anybody remember going to them phones and you'd push down on the button so you could be really quiet and no one would hear the click and you could listen to their conversation? And this was before the wireless phones, when you had 100-foot-long phone cables where you could walk all over the house. You could go anywhere you wanted. You were just tied to the cord. I grew up in that. Many of you grew up in that, and even before you even had some of that. We made it. I got out of my house, out of my room. I went and did things with people. I shared life with people. I grew up with some of my best friends together. And yes, we spent time on a phone, but we spent more time face to face. Guys, we can't lose that. We can love people over technology, you can. But God's design is for us to love people face to face. And people will know, listen, when you take time for someone, it matters. It makes a difference in their life. And especially that person that you're wanting to teach and to tell about Christ. And sometimes it isn't about what you say. It is more about what you do. It matters. Just being there matters. I tell this story sometimes. I don't know that I've ever told. This was way back before Lacey was still a little girl. It's really not about her. It's about her daddy. Back when Roldan, he was the sheriff of Douglas County. And he didn't like me very much, and I didn't like him very much. But that's because I was doing things that I shouldn't have been doing. And to this day, the worst rear chewing I have ever received was from her daddy, long before we were ever husband and wife. And boy, he gave me a good one. I'll never forget it. In fact, I can still remember a lot of the words, but I can't share them in church. But he spoke them with love. The day my sister died, the first person I saw in my house when I walked in with Rawlin Turner. He was sitting in my daddy's chair. I'll never forget it. He didn't speak one word to me. He just looked at me with different eyes than standing on that sidewalk. I'll never forget it. Just his presence. I still went on to do some things that I shouldn't have done, and he didn't like me doing. But in one instantaneous moment, respect was created. And today I get to call that man my father-in-law. How ironic is that? Your presence matters. It matters. It matters. Man, some of you right now, you're longing for something more. Relationships matter. Put yourself out there. Is it messy? Sometimes. Is it hard? Yes. Will you get hurt? Most definitely. But you'll miss something. Miss something to receive, but most importantly, miss something to give. My second thing, number 2, and the worship team can come up really quick. The first one's to be present with those around you. Number 2, be engaged. Be engaged. Don't just be physically present. Be emotionally connected. Completely engaged with the people. 1 Peter 4:8 says, most important of all, continue to show deep love for one another. Showing is not a saying thing. That is a doing thing. Showing is a doing thing. It is actually showing it, living it, being it. It's not just saying I love you. I can tell my wife I love you all day long. And that matters, does it not? But it matters as much or a whole lot more when I show it. By how I treat her, by how I treat our family, by the things that I do around the house, by my responsibilities, by working hard, by taking care. Show it. Be engaged. Show it. Think about this. I guarantee all of you, and probably all of you have done it. If you go to a restaurant today, look around, you'll see a family of 4 or 5 all sitting there with a nice meal together. They have this time that's set aside. And what are they doing? Every single one of them. Again, not an anti-social media message. You have time. You have time. What about with your kids? Kids come home from school, you get home from work, sitting on the couch. Hey, Dad. Hey, Dad. Just a minute, I'm almost done. Man, I got to check this. Hey, Dad. Oh, that's really cool. I'm watching myself right now. Hey, Dad. Hey, Mom, guess what happened at school today? Just a second, sis. I'm looking for that ID on Pinterest. And then by the time you look up from your phone, your kids are gone. Married couples. You work all day, always talking about how much time you don't have with your spouse. You guys come home, you work hard, you have supper, you get things cleaned up, you go crawl in bed to relax. Gosh, we never have time with each other. We just work so hard, we never have time to spend with each other. That's what we say. By the way, over the last couple of weeks, my wife had to remind me what I was preaching today. She did. Confessing again. Because I'm over there working the thumb out. It's priorities. How will people know we're disciples of Christ? How we love people. But here's the problem. Every time this thing buzzes and whistles and chirps and dings, who's that? Oh, I bet they were liking my picture. I got to go see. I might miss something. Listen to me, at the end of your life, it's not going to matter how many likes that you got. At the end of your life, what's going to matter is how you love people. How you love people. How you love your family. Loved your spouse. Loved your kids. your friends. And most importantly, how you love God. It matters. It's going to matter how much love you showed. Much more than your words. And I don't know how to apply this for you. I don't have a clue. Maybe your phone goes down at a certain time. Maybe there's no phones during dinner. If you're in bed with your spouse and you're both on your phones, don't just text her. Put it down and talk. 1 John 3:18. Dear children, let us not merely say that we love each other, but let us show the truth by our actions. There's another show scripture. And again, Jesus said, they will know that you're my disciples by the way you love one another. Be my friend. Be my friend. Guys, I know we're busy. I know we live a busy life. All of us. Stay connected with the tools that you have. Just don't limit that connection to this. True love comes from the example of God, and that is to interact with people. That is to have the personal one-on-one relationships that matter. It makes a difference. Some of you have broken relationships. They might not be mended in a moment today, but you can start. And maybe it does start with a text. Maybe it does start with a tweet. Maybe it does start with a message on Messenger. Maybe that's where it begins. Maybe it's just someone that you haven't talked to in a long time. Maybe they hurt you. Maybe you hurt them. But maybe it's that special person. Maybe it's a family member, a close friend, somebody. And it may not be fixed today, but you can begin the journey to repairing that right now, today. Right now, today. And I mean right now, today. Some of you men need to pick up your phone right now and just send a simple message. I miss you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. That's it. Just beginning that journey right now to healing and to mending that brokenness, that emptiness that not only they may have, but that you might have. Maybe some of you today, I struck a chord. Maybe suppers with your family will look different. By the way, can I just speak to men really quick? Dads, fathers, husbands? That begins with us in our homes. Begins with us in our homes. We set that tone. We set that example. I mess up and I fail many times, but that is on me to lead that way. That doesn't take my wife off the hook from doing her part. That's not what I'm saying. But men, we are called to be the spiritual leaders and lovers of our families in our homes. Maybe time with your kids will look different. Maybe, just being real, maybe time in bed with your spouse will look different. Maybe friendships will be different. Maybe new friendships will begin. Be my friend. Be my friend. God wants the same thing from you. FaceTime, communication, your presence, emotionally engaged.